How are you today? Are you having a rough day in showbiz? I hope you're not. But if you are, I have someone here who will alleviate the pain and help you get through it. Her name is Dana Lynn Barron. Next month, she will appear in the hugely anticipated Being the Ricardos, the Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz film starring Nicole Kidman, Javier Bardem, and J.K. Simmons. She was in the beautiful Oscar-winning film Mank on Netflix. Her TV credits include Bosch, Shameless, American Crime Story, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, This Is Us, Criminal Minds, and more. And I'm honored to have her on. Hello, Dana! Woo!
Oh my gosh. Hello, Justin. I feel a lot of pressure right now.
No. No.
Just kidding.
Good. I was going to say, you? No.
Me? What?
No pressure.
Never. Actors never
pressure.
feel pressure ever.
Good. You have a wealth of experience. And I know that you have many, many, many stories, and we want to hear them. We want to hear what has happened.
Yeah.
Do you
lot.
have like a first one? What's like a one that we can open with? A first one that isn't quite the worst, but it's like, oh, that was pretty bad.
Oh, I have a great one, because what's great about it too, it's the very start of my career, the very first professional job I got.
Ooh.
So, and also some of my stories, I was afraid when coming here today, because I'm like, some of my stories are really more like just vignettes, not really long stories. So I was putting pressure on myself, but this will
perfect.
We'll see how this comes out, but this is a great story. It's I was making my professional musical theater debut in a regional production of 42nd Street, which is a fabulous 1930s tap extravaganza. I was a diva tap dancer, and I was the youngest member of the cast with all these adult singer, actor, dancers from Broadway and other places. And so, and I'm kicking ass, because I can dance. So, So I'm minding my own business, and we're in rehearsals, and we are rehearsing the number for We're in the Money, and we're learning it. Okay. I just want to stress that we're learning it. Now, I know you all can't see me right now, but I have a face that just naturally, my eyes and my eyebrows kind of slope down a little bit. So I think, and when I'm not smiling, I think I have that face that they call resting bitch face, maybe.
Oh.
So I didn't know that. I was 16, although my whole life, just to toss this in there, since I was a toddler, I have memories of strangers coming up to me to say, smile, little girl. And I'd be like, fuck off.
Ugh.
In my head, because I didn't know the word fuck when I was 3, obviously. But I swear to you, my whole life I had that. So fast forward, I'm 16. We're rehearsing this huge musical number that isn't complete yet. And I had this thing, like when I'm not performing, when I wasn't in musicals in particular, if I wasn't performing, I wasn't necessarily smiling. But as I mentioned just a moment ago, if I'm not smiling, I can look kind of serious, like I might be sad or maybe even mad. And if I'm concentrating, learning something, there's I guess, especially intense look on my face, because all I know is there's like 50 plus people in the room, the performers as well as the production team. And all of a sudden, the choreographer screams, "Stop!" Everyone goes silent. Dana, this is not Anne Frank.
Oh.
So,
oh no.
Imagine 16 years old, already feeling all the feels because I'm a freaking teenager and all that. I am so embarrassed, surrounded by grown-ups and professionals and people I admired, and I held my shit together. I was quivering so hard inside. I don't even remember what I said, because so he literally said, "This is not Anne Frank," and my eyes must have bugged out of my head.
Yeah, we're all like that.
And I must have said something like, okay, and then okay, start again, and we did it, and we kept going, and then when we finally broke, it was like I ran like to go to the bathroom. I was going to go to the bathroom, but like the tears started falling as soon as I was out the door, and thankfully, a couple of my lovely castmates who must have been in their 20s and seemed so old at the time. Um, but
Yeah.
they, the girls, they comforted me and just said, it's okay. You're a pro. You did exactly what you needed to do. Just keep going and take a breath. You're okay. And, but that was rough. That was a rough start, but it was a good lesson too. But it also, that brings up a whole slew of things like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. I'm learning a number. I'll put on the smile when it's time. Don't you worry. But so it was fine. And he was in the original Broadway cast. So I had utter respect for him. And, but it was rough. That was just like one of the worst days of my life at that point.
It sounds like he was in the original Broadway cast, and now he's choreographing it.
He was. Well, this is. I'm not a spring chicken.
No.
No, but he was the original. No, this is actually cool, and this is not about rough days. But what was great about making my debut in 42nd Street was that it was actually the first Broadway show I ever saw when I was 11, and this is in the 80s. So it was the first Broadway show my parents took me to see, and it was my first West End show I got to see. And when I saw it in London, I knew I was already cast in my 42nd Street, and my grandparents, they took me to London and we saw it there. And what I didn't know until many years later, the person starring in that London production was Catherine Zeta-Jones, a young Catherine Zeta-Jones who starred as Peggy Sawyer. Yeah. So I love that show. It means a lot. And even with that shitty day.
Oh, beautiful. What a perfect full circle of a story. And so what else can we talk about?
Well, I'm going to go a little serious. I apologize in advance, but I don't know. Okay. Just based on what we're talking about, this feels important to share, and I'll try and keep it brief, but because there's nothing funny about this one, but important, I think. I was shooting a commercial in Brooklyn when 9/11 happened. Wow. And that was rough for so many big, surreal reasons. First of all, just the knowledge. First of all, I was in New York for 7 years after college, and I always lived in the city because even though Brooklyn was cool, I had friends starting to live in Williamsburg and Dumbo and blah, 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 blah. I couldn't bear. So there was something about I had to be in the center of the city. I couldn't bear to take the L or the whatever the hell train it was to go to Brooklyn. No, I need and I want to be in Manhattan. So when someone says, hey, come meet me here, I'll be there. There was that. So this commercial, I forget even what it was for, maybe a bank or something, but we were in Brooklyn and shooting, we were doing a shot, and suddenly, you start to hear crew starts to chatter. Suddenly I heard, I don't know what they were saying even, but something's happened. The tower, I was hearing the towers. Then at some point they said, everyone, let's break. And we were shooting, our base camp was at a school or something. And I remember going into a classroom, and there was the memory I have of it, it was like a little TV, almost like a cheap plastic, they weren't the flat screens yet. Yeah. But whatever it was in this Brooklyn classroom, the TV was on, and they were showing the towers, and I forget what had happened. They hadn't fallen yet. This was early. By the way, my production, the van I was in from Manhattan to Brooklyn, went under the buildings 15 minutes before it happened. So that was trippy for me to know too. Ooh. But basically, it didn't seem real. That's what I remember. It didn't seem, when on the TV, we're like, what? Planes? What? We were all, it was this weird, it was surreal. It was like a denial of, we didn't grasp what was happening until it just, I don't know, something clicked, and whatever the news was reporting, we were finally understanding. 2 planes have hit the towers. Okay. 2 planes have hit the towers. And suddenly we're not shooting anymore. We're not completely broken yet. But next thing I know is that the mostly male crew were going to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to try and help. They didn't know, we didn't fully comprehend what was actually happening. And I think this was even before the buildings were falling, but the crew members from our shoot were walking across the bridge to go see how they could help. we finally, I was wandering, I was walking, I was feeling restless. So I was walking back and forth on this block where there was a bunch of brownstones, and I walked past, there was a door to a brownstone that was open, but they had like a screen door, but their front door was open. And I hear this woman clearly trying to find out if a loved one was okay, as she was trying to reach them, what's happening. And I just stood there at her gate, like, and she didn't want to talk to me or anything, but like I had this need to let her know that, do you need someone? Like if I'm here, if you need to talk to someone, but she was clearly in distress. When they finally said, we're done for today, go home or go wherever, I forget if she was a PA or if she was a second AD. I don't know, but she basically said, any of you who live in Manhattan who either can't or don't want to go back home right now, come over. So there was a pile of us who went to her. She lived on the second or third floor of a brownstone, and we hung. I was joking. I don't know if I was joking, but I was talking about Brooklyn in the beginning of this story. And basically because, how I couldn't bear to live there because I had to live in Manhattan so I could be near all the things. But I was never so happy to be in Brooklyn as I was on that day. We spent the whole day because at that time I was living on the Upper East Side. Like a year before, was still living in Tribeca. So that would have been interesting if I still lived down there. But I was very scared because we didn't know what was going on, right? We didn't know if there was anything else coming or whatever. And I would have had to take the F train to get back home to the Upper East Side. So I was very grateful we spent the day at this girl's house, watching the news, but also just being there for each other. And then thankfully, although there was much more, I mean, that was a traumatic day for everyone, but I will say the end of that day, I'll never forget, finally taking the train home, taking a breath. And I talked to my friend, Sarah, who lived in Midtown on the East Side. And she says, when you're ready to get back home, call me. We'll go to dinner. So we met at this place on 2nd Avenue, Upper East Side. I forget the name of it, but you know how in New York, there's like areas of the city where there's just like a bunch of restaurants, one after the other, and like sidewalk tables and
love New York.
Yeah. But most of the time we all are like, I'm paying attention to the person I'm with. Screw everyone else. You don't, it's not like in Europe, I've had the experience of sitting outside at those cafes and you start conversations with perfect strangers and it's wonderful, but we don't tend to do that in America.
No, definitely not New York.
Yeah.
Especially.
So we're at this place and all I know is like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm not making money yet, but I'm ordering the most expensive steak on the menu and a fabulous glass of wine. We drank, we ate, and we were talking to the other people and it was amazing. Now, 2nd Avenue too, if you know New York, it is a street where cars go uptown. It's one way and they go uptown. But we're all eating our dinners and all of a sudden we hear this rumbling and the huge Caterpillar tractors, the massive trucks, suddenly it was like a parade of them going down 2nd Avenue to get down to start cleaning up the rubble. So, and we all raised our glasses and cheered and it was very emotional, very intense. It was a rough day in showbiz, but as rough as that day was and the days to come, even it was there. I've had a few of those moments in New York in particular where suddenly humanity seems to come together. And boy, do I miss that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's that story.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What an incredible story.
Yeah. What's so cool about New York that too, it's like, it's one of those places, I don't know, you can't help but get kicked in the pants and you do things that you may not have done in another place. Like I spent my 20s, I didn't know what I was doing, but I started shooting films, producing short films, running around. I was in that little independent film crowd. We were just making stuff, flailing about while, I couldn't get arrested as an actor at all during my 20s. So I was making movies. And I also related to that somewhat, sort of. So my day job at that time too was I first of all, I attempted bartending for like 2 minutes. I bartended in the Broadway theaters and I was terrible at it. I also attempted waiting on tables for the first time ever. for, again, think I lasted a month. I was like, screw this. Like, first of all, servers have one of the toughest jobs in the universe. I've always felt that. I know that. I tried it because I thought, oh, it's the flexible job. I'm an actor. This is what I should do. No, I should not, because A, I was terrible at it. B, I don't believe the customer's always right. Fuck that.
Same. Fuck them.
I can't. And so I took off my apron one day and I'm like, bye, because I just couldn't take it. So I was a temp, and so I was an executive administrative assistant, AKA used to be called secretaries. So I started off in finance. And what was great was they loved the artists. So actually it was a very flexible job at the time for me. They loved the artists. There were opera singers, writers, actors. And if you had an audition, they would let you go. Oh yeah, just
that's
come back
really nice.
And finish. So it was surprisingly helpful. However, it was soul killing. Like, I don't care about finance. I was working at the big ones, Citibank, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and money was good and all that. But I'm like, I am unhappy. So I eventually, through various contacts, got in with a temp agency that was connected to all the entertainment companies. FYI / my pay in half, but everyone wants to work in entertainment so they can pay you less, I guess. Whatever. So I had a bunch of fun jobs, and it was just great to be within the circle of the industry I loved and was interested in. And so I was just like, let me just absorb what I can. So I worked a lot, and I spent a very interesting month in Scott Rudin's office in New York. And what was so this rough day, this will be very brief. I know, I took the job at Scott's knowing his interesting reputation as a intense person with an intense personality, and maybe behaves badly at times. But I was working for, it's interesting, I have found in various companies I've worked for, it's interesting, there's the people at the top who don't always behave well. But often,
as we've seen.
The people who work for them, it can go one of two ways. Either the people who work for them are wonderful, and that was my experience at Scott's office. The people who I was actually reporting to, they were fabulous. I had a wonderful month. I was filling in because, and actually me even mentioning the difference between how people behave, that'll get to my story working at Miramax. Don't let me forget, okay? Okay. But so they were looking to hire someone in this position I was in. I was just the temp, and I was there for a month, and they actually offered me the job, but it was, like, okay, I could choose a whole nother path right now if I said yes to this job. And I turned it down because even though I was flailing all over the place and couldn't get agents, I wasn't getting hired yet, but I knew, I'm like, I am an actor, and I said, I can't give you 200% that you'd require of me if I worked here. But my rough day occurred. It was actually like a rough 5 minutes, but
rough enough.
Yeah. So the office in New York, it wasn't large. So I could hear loud voices at times, and, from the man up top, and I just stayed out of the way and did what I had to do. But there was this, when I was first there were these phone systems at the time, and kind of complicated, and I hadn't been there that long. And so sometimes a bunch of lights will go off all at once, and you have to make sure you're picking up your line, not other people's lines. So Scott had the bullpen. There were like 6 guys. I don't think there were any women at the time, but 6 of his assistants working various parts of the business, picking up those lines. Then I had my lines. I was in the development department. And one day I accidentally picked up one of Scott's lines, and it was Sherry Lansing. Do our listeners know our Hollywood history? Do you know who Sherry Lansing is? One of the most powerful women. Oh my goodness. Everyone must Google Sherry Lansing. That's SherryLansing. Sherry Lansing. Yeah. Well, she ran Paramount for many, many, many years. Many of its fruit. She started when she was very young. She started as a model. I think she wanted to be an actress, but she became one of the most powerful women in Hollywood. And also, from everything I ever heard, I never got to meet her. She's still alive, I think. But she's one of the nicest people. Like, I heard stories of, like, if you weren't a famous person or a known a known producer or director or whatever, if you called and left a message at her office, she returned calls. she was just is this wonderful person. I think her focus nowadays is still philanthropy.
It looks like, she does a lot of things for Stand Up to Cancer. And
so she's wonderful. But imagine you understand that the person in charge at the top can be a difficult temperament or personality to deal with. You pick up his phone line and Sherry Lansing, head of Paramount, is on the other line. Maybe it's hard to feel like I can convey the terror I felt in that moment. My heart in my throat, even though Sherry was perfectly lovely. She literally said, "Oh, I said hi." I think I picked up. And she said, "Hey, it's Sherry Lansing for Scott." And that's when my heart went in my throat. I'm like, fuck, I pushed the wrong button. What am I doing? And I didn't know. I was full of terror because that's the kind of thing. Like if I hung up on her accidentally, I felt like Scott's going to march down the hall and strangle me or over this. Like this is not, it's a phone call, but I can't, please God. I was like, please, I'm pushing this button. Please don't hang up on her. Please don't hang up on her. Like, so, that was a rough 5 minutes. And again, for our listeners, maybe I'm not going to be successful in fully conveying how terrorizing that moment felt to me. That you were going to be reamed by one of our industry's most notorious, producers. It didn't happen, thankfully, and I successfully put her on hold and let one of the guys up front know, "Hey, Miss Lansing's on the phone, please." But you didn't want to keep her waiting either. I mean, I looked up to her. She was okay. Anyway,
I get those nerves though. It's like, don't say anything. Just don't say anything.
But that's what's
talk.
Scary. Yeah. I was more scared of Scott's reaction than of Sherry being on the phone. Like it was a very weird moment. And okay, I'm in my 20s too. And just like, I want to make an impression.
Right.
Oh,
my life is over.
Isn't that funny? Like my life is over because of this. Really? Like,
in your 20s, right? That's the dialogue.
It was very dramatic. It felt very dramatic.
You had said that you worked as a bartender at the Broadway theater.
Oh yeah, when I first came to New York, I forgot who. I was a friend because I had friends who had already arrived in New York ahead of me. So someone said, "Oh, go to this place. You can bartend," and I'd never bartended before. I like to drink, but I'd never bartended. And in fact, what's funny is with having my movie coming up, Aaron Sorkin also started off by bartending in the theaters. And in fact, he wrote, as the story goes, he wrote his play, A Few Good Men, on the cocktail napkins while bartending at one of those theaters. So I bartended. It was at the Court Theater. I also did a little bit at Miss Saigon. I forget the name of the theater, but at the Court Theater, the play The Heiress was going on with a then unknown to me anyway, Cherry Jones and Frances Conroy. Like the cast was amazing. The play, I loved listening to it every night, but I was a crappy bartender and it was overwhelming.
I bet. I was just going to say this. So this is like during intermission when people are getting drinks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And before.
Talk about a rush.
Yeah. And this was before, I think it was before. Nowadays, you can put in your order before the show. So it's like a quicker. Yeah. I mean, there was none of that. It was like hey, I want a dry martini with 10 olives and.
Right. And it's 10 minutes. I mean, it's just like you have to get this onslaught in 10 minutes. Yeah. Everyone wants to drink. They're irritable. Right. Because they all need their alcohol.
And my hand's shaking. Hand's shaking. I was like nervous. I was always nervous. I was so nervous.
Oh my God. And then I bet it's like, oh, she didn't make my drink in time.
Yeah.
Well, now I guess I have to go watch the rest of this Broadway show.
Oh, the stress was just like, it was not helpful.
I can only imagine that. Oh, that onslaught. There's a great thing. I think it was a tweet that said, "If you've ever been a customer, fuck you." Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. If you've been a customer, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that. And I
Yeah.
tried, again, I have so many friends and colleagues who are servers, and God bless you.
Yeah.
God bless you. And I try and remember that when I dine out, I can't not think about that. That said, I also notice when you're shit. I notice when you're shitty at your job. So there's that. But
yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It's rough.
It's rough. It's rough. So I took us on a tangent. What is the next rough day in showbiz story?
I was trying to debate. Well, okay, I had mentioned Miramax. So,
oh yes,
when I lived in New York, my rough. It's funny. My rough day in showbiz is not at Miramax in New York. It was actually out in LA. So speaking of, when the people at the top are toxic and how that does or doesn't dribble down in a company. So in general, I will say I was at Miramax in the 90s in New York. And so I was bopping around all their offices downtown in Tribeca, basically. And I worked in legal and in finance, and it was fine. It wasn't really near the action. Little did I know what kind of action was going on in other places. So maybe I was spared. But I will say when I moved, I enjoyed that, though. I was happy to be working in the industry, essentially doing my day job, such as it was. But when I came back out to LA, I was able to get in the temp pool for the LA office. Whew. And I had one of the roughest days of my life as a temp and just in showbiz. I don't know what they ate for breakfast that morning, but I'll be very careful. I won't even name the department I was working in because I already said it was, well, it's not the 90s anymore. We're in the aughts. Is that what we call it?
The odds. Oh, I like that.
Early 2000s. I won't say which department, but I will say, it's with Miramax, it's an interesting thing because we obviously have all read or have paid attention to on some level everything around Harvey Weinstein. My experience at Miramax, it's interesting. It's the women I had the most trouble with. The women at the top, I should say. Women at the top. I had the experience being in the LA office of when some of the women at the top would be coming out from New York, the panic. Like but in retrospect, I can go, oh, they were really afraid of these people. And I didn't know the reason why, but it was very toxic. And not one day. Well, actually I was supposed to for a week work in this particular department. I'd never worked in before. I was interested because it's an area that, I had an interest in it. So I'm like, cool. But again, I don't know what so there were 4 ladies in this department. And from the word go, they decided to bully me. Like from the word go, like I'd already worked in other departments where like they had me back again and again. And I know what I'm doing. And with regards to temps, usually it just means rolling calls, picking up the phone, keeping track of certain things. And when they can tell you can do other things, they'll hand off, read this script or whatever. But these ladies, I don't know what it was. I'd never been treated like that in my life. I mean, just imagine 4 rather women. And that's what struck me too at the time too. Like, why are you treating me? What have I done? I'm just going to pick up your phones for the day. Why? Like they were doing that, well, you don't know, you're a guy, but like the thing I used to loathe about high school and high school girls in particular, that's what they were behaving like. But that thing, I mean, I dressed presentably. I wasn't maybe wearing luxury designers or whatever, but they were doing that, eyeing the, from head to toe, like look like as if they're judging what you're wearing. And they're like, ooh, why didn't you do this? And why, like just ganging up on me for what I could tell no reason. I did something I'd never done before, which was without telling them when it was my lunch break, I left and I didn't go back. And I called my temp agency and I said, that's a hostile work environment. I'm not going back. They can deal. And
that is fucked up.
Yeah, it was. And especially just, I think that was I've been fortunate in that I've largely been spared a lot of what the women have gone through in all the various stories that have come out in recent years. Not just in entertainment, but elsewhere. And I also know men have also faced the harassment and just hostile work environments and violence in some cases, emotional, physical, or otherwise. But it's like, what are these women doing? Like, why Why? That's what I kept asking myself. And it's awful too when you're like someone like me who I'm already hard on myself. I'm a recovering perfectionist and all that. But like, I was like, what did I do? What could I have done better? Like I made it about like it was my fault. So I suffered from that experience. Eventually got over it. But yeah, that was rough.
I'm sure.
There are some very unhappy, mean people out there.
Yes.
And so, yeah. But so I did the right thing though to walk. Yeah. That felt good. That was very liberating.
I'm glad you told that story because that is the answer, to walk.
Yeah.
Because look what happened at the end of the day.
Yeah.
To the man on top.
Well,
look
yeah.
What happened.
Yeah. And I didn't even know, obviously at that time, a lot of us had no idea. Yeah. Had no idea. So there you go.
That's good. That's good for people to hear that. Just walk, just leave.
Yeah.
You can find people who treat you with respect.
Yeah. The morale, whether it's in a production company or a studio lot. Before I moved to New York, I was in the temp pool at Universal, and it was a tumultuous time. I forget who, Bronfman. I forget who was it. There was a lot of change going on. And a lot of firing going on. And it was interesting because when you walked on the lot in those days, you could feel the weight, like the heaviness, like the morale. People were not happy or they were scared, like who's going to get let go next. You could feel it. Oh. And then the difference, like I said, in the Miramax offices in LA in particular, and just that feeling of tension always. And then Warner Brothers, it felt just happy and expansive. And it's
That's
still
Warner
one of my
Brothers.
Favorite places. It's still one of my favorite places. I love it. So,
wow.
Whatever. I have another rough story from New York.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I feel like my stories, sometimes they're little short ones though, but
no, that's good though. That's good.
Yeah. So this one, I'd mentioned, I think that in my 20s, I was running around producing short films. And,
yes.
If I could go back to the beginning, I really wish I'd had the wherewithal and the thought to have a producing mentor, like to really, there's value, I think, in just doing the thing, and you learn as you go sometimes. This is true. And I even had, I had talks with a couple producers I knew, and I think I remember one in particular, I said, I don't know what I'm doing though. And he laughed and went, none of us does. And I'm like, yeah, but you're producing at Warner Brothers or wherever. Like, you must know something, the basics. There's like, so I was producing this film that ultimately went to the Berlin Film Festival. So,
oh, wow. Congrats.
Thanks. It probably helped. The director had a feature there previously. So I know that usually does help things, but it was an interesting film. Our short film was definitely visually beautiful. Story-wise, it was challenged maybe, but it was really beautiful. But it was a rough shoot. It was very guerrilla
producing,
and I was producer, and I didn't know I knew what I was doing. Like, I'm a smart cookie. I am, but I was also a control freak who didn't have the skill, didn't quite know how to really delegate what needed to be delegated, and also. It was just, I, how do I phrase this? I know in retrospect, and especially in light of the recent stuff, the horrible tragedy of what happened on the film Rust.
Yes.
We had prop guns on our shoot. They were props though. We didn't, yeah. Anyway, but related to that, I did not, like, we were desperate for a good first AD, and our budget wasn't allowing for the people we wanted. And I hired someone like I should never have hired, basically. And to the point where our incredible production designer jumped in and took over the first AD spot, which she should never have had to do. But thank God, because our crew was amazing. Our core crew was amazing, and they had all been referred by one of my coach's son, who was also a producer, director, and all that. Anyway, the crew was amazing, but they were, what's that phrase? Like a rag and tag crew. Like they were like serious New Yorkers. And like, for me, this nice little Jewish girl from San Diego, they were tatted up. They were like they were city kids. They were,
Yeah.
but adults, they were already working in film. So they knew what they were doing. Thank God. They knew what they were doing. Thank God. And I'm like flailing. We were paying them, but it was a rough shoot. And so, oh my gosh. So my mother was visiting during the shoot, my sweet mother. And all I know is she wanted to do something nice, as she does. And so she wanted to contribute, like, because, it costs a lot of money to make a film. So she wanted to pay for the meals of the day.
Oh.
Now, what we didn't know was there was going to be a massive rainstorm that day. We were shooting inside, so that was fine, but massive rainstorm, and it was freezing cold. And my mother and I thought it'd be brilliant. We weren't thinking about the weather at all, but thought it would be brilliant for the dinner meal to be trays and trays of Subway sandwiches. Okay, first of all, Subway. So there's that. But I can't even tell you. And again, this is hard to convey, kind of like what I was saying with Scott Rudin's story, like terror. This isn't terror, but this is when the trays of Subway arrived and my mom and I were bringing them in, the look on our core crew members' faces, like, are you fucking kidding me? And one of them, they were the type of personalities, God bless them, were vocal. Like, she was the hair and makeup designer. She says, are you fucking kidding me? Subway sandwiches, cold meal on a cold day. Are you fucking kidding me? And my mom and I were like deer in headlights. I felt instantly awful. And also like, okay, teachable moment. Yeah, Dana, cold weather, make sure there's warm meal. So I think we were shooting down at a location. Yeah. But again, in my 20s, learning, but like common sense, but also when you're producing and there's 1,000 things going on and 1,000 fires to be put out. Okay. Yeah. And in bigger, different situations, I would have had someone else who was dealing with these things, perhaps, maybe, I don't know. But we very quickly, we were in the West Village and there was a Chinese restaurant, cause it's New York.
It's going to be good too.
Yeah. So we went, got menus, immediately said, pick what you want, whatever you want.
Oh.
And we got the Chinese, all the Chinese dishes were sent over and it resolved itself. But I felt, you all don't know me personally, perhaps, but I'm someone who that's a challenge of mine, taking things really hard and really personally, even when it doesn't have to be, but I felt responsible. So I felt bad. And I was like, I'm pounding myself on the back right now, beating myself up. Like, how could you not know that? How could you, but everything is about doing better the next time. So,
but you did make it right too. You made it right.
I did make it right.
And not a lot of people would do that.
And we apologize. I felt, because you're right. Some people would say, deal with it. That's what our budget allows. Yeah. Enjoy your sandwiches.
Most people. Yeah. I would be like, oh, this is what we got. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go get food.
But it's tough to learn. It's tough to go through those moments. When you're young and just starting out.
I know. What do you have coming up?
Where I'm at now is I've begun the publicity tour for Being the Ricardos, which is Aaron Sorkin's his latest film. I'm actually going to, I'm looking forward to my first event. I'm actually seeing the film at a screening on Saturday. So I'm very excited to see where my character is, how she is in the world, in the final cut. And Sunday I will be at the Contenders event with it. I'm not doing the presentation, but I will be there to meet and greet. So that should be fun.
Super cool.
So
and I can't wait to watch it. And everyone listening, watch it.
I'm in the trailer. I was so excited. I'm like,
yes.
So it's the trailer moves very fast, but 15 seconds in, I play Miss Rosen, who's Desi Arnaz's personal secretary. And see, my work as a temp, has paid off big time. So 15 seconds into the first trailer they released, I'm there.
You are.
December 10th in theaters and December 21st on Amazon.
I'll be watching, and everyone else should watch it too. And where can people follow you on the socials and keep up with all the cool stuff you're doing?
Yes. Okay. So I'm at DanaLynnBarron.com. That's one place. And then I'm also Dana Lynn Barron on IMDb and all the social media platforms. So for example, Instagram would be at Dana Lynn Barron. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, because people like to add letters to my name, my middle name Lynn is spelled with one N and Barron is spelled with one R. So my mother was being very efficient with her lettering.
Very good. Dana Lynn Barron, follow her, watch Being the Ricardos. Dana, thank you so much for being on. You made this so easy for me.
Thank you for
so
having
many
me.
awesome stories. Oh, what a full episode. I love it.
I had so much fun remembering all these rough days.
Dana Lynn Barron. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.